This video is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Get ready to smile.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. Obviously, a big day, or at least what we hoped would be a big day come the MLB trade deadline. We are fresh off the deadline. We are 33 minutes past the MLB trade deadline, and nothing happened today, basically, is the story. But there's still plenty to talk about even with that. Last night, of course, we went live really late, had a great crowd because of course, what happened last night. But I wanted to get on here today and talk about it more in depth. I've had a night to sleep on it. You've had a night to sleep on it. And I wanted to talk about this Jorge Soler situation. I wanted to talk about Luke Jackson a little bit more in depth. But really, I was hoping that we'd have even more to talk about that I could lead the show with tonight. But what we're going to lead with the show is the Braves did not make any extra moves. They did not go after anyone else following yesterday's trade for Jorge Soler and Luke Jackson, both of those guys coming from the Giants in a singular trade. The Braves lose a minor league infielder as well as postseason legend. You saw him in the intro video there, Tyler Matzik. So let's do a deep dive on this. Again, I gave you my initial reaction last night. I heard from a lot of you. Thank you for those that stayed up late with us. Thank you for those that are here right now. Really appreciate that. But let's talk about this. Jorge Soler, obviously we're very familiar with who he is. We're very familiar with what he brings to the table, as are the Braves, which is probably a lot of the reason they went after him. And I think when you hear Jorge Soler's coming to the Braves, naturally you have some nostalgia. You have some positive feelings because, of course, he did win the World Series MVP back in 2021 for the Atlanta Braves. That is naturally going to carry some weight. It just is what it is. But for the Braves and for the organization, after hearing what Alex Anthopoulos had to say following the trade deadline, it was also a lot to do with what he brings in the clubhouse, which isn't everything, but it is definitely something. But also, this is somebody that they were looking to bring back to Atlanta over the past few years. They tried to do it at the trade deadline back in 2022. They did not entertain it when he was a free agent this past year, but, different circumstances leads you to need different things. And right now, they viewed the fact that we could really use a solid outfield bat. And I took some notes listening to the press conference from Alex Anthopoulos a few minutes ago. The one that stuck with me the most was he was the best bat available in our eyes that we could get and that we could get for an acceptable price, which that's the other thing not being talked about enough. A lot of people have said that they don't like this deal or they're not satisfied with just this deal. I told you last night that I didn't think it made sense even if that was the only move. I thought there needed to be other moves to upgrade the pitching staff in some capacity, maybe the infield. But Alex Anthopoulos basically said, look, our priority was an outfield bat. We need help offensively. We like the five guys we have in the rotation for the most part. And when it comes to the bullpen, we addressed bullpen depth at the beginning of the year. They've been solid so far. We didn't see a point in adding there and losing what we have in prospect capital or even trade capital for relievers. And he said that they explored other moves, moves that were probably for bigger name players. But this is the one that they settled on. This is the one that, again, made the most sense. So this is just what I'm giving you fresh out of the press conference. This is what is coming from the mouth of Alex Anthopoulos. And a lot of other things were talked about. Whit Merrifield was discussed and whether or not that gave any kind of security for the infield with the absence of Ozzy Albies. It seems like, according to Alex Anthopoulos, that Ozzy Albies is trending for a return in early September. While we're on injuries, let's go ahead and address them all. Reynaldo Lopez, as of right now, is still scheduled to pitch on his regular rest and scheduled to be ready to go. Max Fried is looking like he's turned a corner. He pitched a bullpen, feels good. So things are starting to turn positive when it comes to the injuries. And that probably gave the Braves a sense of security, and it made them not feel quite as desperate to add in different scenarios. But there was no question that we needed to add a bat. whether that be at shortstop, whether that be at second base, or whether that be in right field. There was no question there. The outfielders that we have so far have done a good job for the most part. We've seen some plays where it looks like the bad news bears, but all in all, they've done what they can. I mean, it's not like the Braves can just lose a MVP or an MVP, lose a Cy Young contender, and more, lose all-stars, lose starters left and right, and expect to just play on all cylinders. But for the Braves, this is they're banking on what's coming back. They're banking on the fact that they are getting Fried back, they are getting Reynaldo back, they are getting Ozzy back, they are getting Michael Harris back. So they didn't feel like they had to add all that much. That tells me that, and really the tone of Alex Anthopoulos' press conference told me that the focus has shifted. It's not about winning the division. If they can win the division, they're certainly going to give it their all. But I think at this point, like I said last night, the focus has shifted to let's get healthy, let's get everybody back, and let's make sure we have a wild card spot. And basically, when we get to the postseason, give them hell. That's where I think we are at the moment, which I'm okay with that. Again, I wouldn't be okay with that any other year, but with the injuries that the Braves have had, with all of what they have to deal with, I'm not mad at that at all. We're going to go to break real quick, but when we get back, we're going to do a deep dive on this Soler and Jackson deal, and I'm going to give you really what I think about it, and I'd love to hear from you too. But before we go to break, just a reminder, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck.
Are you ready to save big on a new GMC?
At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, you can own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $14,500 off. The roomy and comfortable GMC Terrains are up to $8,250 off. And the GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7, discounted up to $8,000 off. At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika,
Get ready to smile.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about this Soler deal. So again, Jorge Soler is a name that we know very well for obvious reasons. He hit a home run that will live in fame when it comes to the Atlanta Braves for all eternity, all of Braves history. They're in World Series Game 6 back in 2021. He was named the World Series MVP. But this is a guy who's had a really solid career. He's a veteran player. And again, we know him well. This year, though, 93 games played. I mean, that's the majority of the games played. He's missing about 10 if you look at it. 240 average, 12 homers, 330 on base, 749 slug. He's been really good lately. I can just tell you in his last 5 games, he's 11 for 18. That's good for a 611 average across 5 games. He has hit a homer. He's got 5 RBIs. That's a small sample size, really. But he has been really good lately, and that's key because back in 2021 when we traded for him, if you remember, back when he was with the Royals, he was really hot there about a week or two before being brought to the Braves. And when he was brought to Atlanta, he took off. In 55 games with Atlanta back in 2021, he hit 14 homers. If you were to even that out, that'd be about 36 across 149 games for the totality of the season. So he was on pace for 36 homers. He was on fire back in 2021 for the Braves. He had a 269 average. And of course, we all know what he did in the World Series. We all know what he did in the postseason and what led up to the postseason. We're all very aware of that. But back in 2019, he led the American League in both home runs and strikeouts. So that's the type of player you're getting. He may strike out a good bit, but he also is going to be able to give you some power, which we are lacking to some degree. I agree with a lot of the contingency out there that thinks we need to get players that get on base because when Ozuna homers and it's a solo shot and he's got 31 of them, if they were 3-run homers, we'd probably have a lot more wins in the column. I can agree with all of that, but I do like this move. And remember, some players, change of scenery helps. I think Soler coming to Atlanta, getting a warm reception as the former World Series MVP here in Atlanta, I think it's going to do wonders for him. The fact that the Braves were willing to take his contract, which we're going to go in depth on that later on too. The fact that they're willing to take a 3-year contract where he's owed $26 million after this year. It's a backloaded contract. that tells me that they are at least committing that to him, and I'm sure that's going to have a positive effect. Not that he wasn't already going to get that money, but the fact that Atlanta was willing to stop the presses and, pull him over when there were probably some options out there that were cheaper, that says that they were at least willing to spend this year and spend on the future as well, because this does not just, result in impacting this year. This is for 2025 and 2026, which leads to a lot of questions. Questions that, we don't have all the answers to just yet. We're going to go through them later on, but if you were to ask me, is this a perfect move? I would say no. Is it the move that I thought they would do? I would say no. Is it the move that I wanted them to do? No. But this is a positive move. It's going to help the offense. We're going to get into it. But the first question that we have to answer is, where will everyone play once Jorge Soler is healthy? And I think that's a fair conversation. Jorge Soler has played no innings in the outfield this year. He is a DH by trade this year. And in case you aren't aware, we have a pretty good DH in Marcell Ozuna, so he's not going to take that spot. Ozuna versus Soler in the field, I would lean Soler, so he's going to play right field. A lot of people are asking, why isn't he playing tonight? I should mention that. The flights were delayed for both he and Luke Jackson, so they will be activated tomorrow. Pending any other issues, but the flights were just delayed. So he will be playing tomorrow. I would imagine he starts tomorrow. I couldn't see a world where we're picking up Jorge Soler's contract and we're not playing him tomorrow. I just would imagine he plays tomorrow, more than likely in right field. Maybe you put Kelnick in center and you put either Rosario or Duvall in left, or whatever the case may be. You could put Soler in left because, better defender may be better for right field with the arm. Either way, whatever way you want to do it, I imagine he starts tomorrow. But again, this leads to a lot of questions as to what will the roster look like, what will what will the lineup look like, especially once everybody's healthy. And when we get back, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what Jorge Soler's addition does to the lineup and what it's going to result in this season.
Are you ready to save big on a new Chevrolet?
Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. The powerful Chevy Silverados are up to $13,750 off. And the big Chevy Silverado 2500 HTs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Again, thank you for all being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. And for those of you that are in the chat, appreciate you. We are going to get to all of your comments. Just a reminder, super chats do get priority. If you super chat, we will read your comment before we read anyone else's. So just an encouragement to super chat. It does support the channel. Every penny goes back into the channel and helps us grow. But the best way you can help us grow really is to hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notifications as well. That way you know when we go live, every time we go live, when we drop new content, when we drop new videos. We want you to be a part of the On Deck community. And we obviously have a lot of fun here during the season. It's been a real up and down season. It's been a real up and down trade deadline. Again, with this Jorge Soler edition, there were a lot of questions. Some questions that you guys asked me last night that, I went to bed with and thought about and looked at and really did a deep dive earlier today. So we're going to talk about it. But before we do that, the question that we have to answer first is, what does this do? What does this do to the everyday lineup? What does this do to where everybody will play, especially once everybody's healthy? So to start that off, let's go ahead and take a look at the current 26-man roster. This is prior to Luke Jackson being placed on this roster. This is prior to Jorge Soler being placed on this roster. And if you ask me who I think, when you ask me who I think will be placed on the roster, when you ask me who do I think will be taken off the roster in place for Luke Jackson, there is a lot, there's a lot of debate there, rightfully so. You could argue a lot of cases there. I don't have anyone in particular that I'm willing to take off. I mean, Darius Vines is the most recent addition, so that would make the most sense. But Darius Vines is probably going to be sent down anyway because Max Fried's got to come back rather quickly in the next week or two. So either way, you have to pick someone out of the upper 12, and I don't know who that would be. Obviously, it wouldn't be any starters. I don't think it'd be, A.J. Minter or Raisel Iglesias or even a Grant Holmes at this point. So you're looking, if Luke Jackson is to take the mound, you're looking at a Chavez, Bummer, Pierce Johnson, Joe Jimenez, or Dylan Lee, which Dylan Lee would probably be the most likely out of that bunch. In terms of Jorge Soler, it's a little bit more simple than that. I think you take off Luke Williams, you put him in there, and you call it a day. But that is the current 26-man roster as it stands, and it's going to change a lot. It's not going to change necessarily in putting the names in different spots, but it's going to do a lot to the lineup. We're going to get into that. Whit Merrifield is also considered to be an outfielder. Just keep that in mind as we move forward. But you got about 6 players to choose from when it comes to the outfield. They're at the bottom, really. Whit Merrifield, Jared Kelenic, Ramon Laureano, Adam Duvall, Eddie Rosario, and Luke Williams. I think the obvious choice is to cut Luke Williams. And then the question becomes, out of all of those guys, what do you do with Michael Harris, right? And that is, of course, going to, have to be dealt with at some point. If you're asking me what I think the infield kind of solves your outfield problem because I don't consider Whit Merrifield an outfielder. That's how he is listed in the 26-man roster. He can play outfield. He is capable of it, but that is not why he was signed. He was signed to play second base to replace Ozzie Albies because, look, he was signed the day after Ozzie Albies got hurt. So we all know that's what the intention was before he got hurt. So I think once he is back, Nacho Alvarez will likely go down to the minors anyway. So Luke Williams very well may stay up, and Nacho Alvarez is the one to go. And then later on, Luke Williams goes in anticipation for Michael Harris and or Ramon Laureano or whoever they may choose. I think those two are the most obvious choices. But the question also is, what does this do to the lineup for the rest of the year, right? Currently, this is your lineup. This is literally last night's lineup. Jared Kelenic, obviously, leading off. Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, Sean Murphy, Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, Orlando Arcia, and Nacho Alvarez. That has been a very weak lineup so far this season. It has not been a lot of fun, but keep in mind, Nacho Alvarez has not really found it at the plate just yet. I think that, at some point he's going to be sent down. I mean, that's the obvious move. But who's going to be put up in that spot? Likely Whit Merrifield. So this is what it's going to look like when you get Whit Merrifield back, when you add Soler into the lineup. It's going to shift a little bit. And I don't know that this is necessarily the order that the lineup is going to be in. We've seen different incarnations of the lineup over the past couple of weeks. The Braves and, of course, manager Brian Snitker trying anything and everything to make offense happen. And we've seen different incarnations. I could see a world in which Soler leads off. I mean, I'm not opposed to anything. And before you call me crazy, that's what he was doing in 2021. So I think there's a way this goes, but I do think Soler is going to be a starter. I don't know that Eddie Rosario will be a starter. I could see a world, at least temporarily, where Rosario and Duvall are a platoon. That's why Rosario is listed in the bench as well. So, I mean, Laureano's going to get time. Alex Anthopoulos mentioned today that he thought Snit would mix and match these guys as he sees fit based on the pitching matchups and that kind of thing. So it's very flexible. So, you could put Soler, in the 6 hole for all I care. But a lot of things are going to get more secure once you add Ozzie Albies and once you add Michael Harris back into the lineup. We're going to be back at full strength. And this is going to happen, I think, earlier than we think. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I think Jared Kelenic has established himself as your leadoff guy. Ozzie Albies will be back in the 2 hole. Austin Riley in the 3 hole. Matt Olson in the 4 hole. Marcell Ozuna as DH. I could even see a world where you move Marcell above Matt. You put Matt in the 5 hole. Michael Harris will be back in that 6 slot. Soler will be giving him protection. Sean Murphy could be below him. Orlando could be in the 9 hole. When Orlando's in the 9 hole, you have a much stronger lineup, just naturally. And it'll be what it'll be, but that's how I see this evolving, right? So in terms of how this is going to play out this year, that's pretty simple. I think Soler can find a spot. I think the problem is going to be what happens the following year, right? What do we do once Acuna's back? What do we do once we don't have necessarily a spot in the outfield? And that question is going to come with what do we do with Jorge Soler, or what do we do with Marcell Ozuna? That when we come back.
Are you ready to save big on a new GMC?
At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, you can own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $14,500 off. The roomy and comfortable GMC Terrains are up to $8,250 off. And the GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7, discounted up to $8,000 off. At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika,
Get ready to smile.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. Very active chat, very active on the viewership tonight. Really appreciate that. Just a reminder, please do like the video. It helps us out a ton, and we really would appreciate it. I think before we talk about what happens with Marcell Ozuna next year, what happens with Jorge Soler, we ought to talk about just the trade deadline in its entirety, because a lot of stuff happened. I think a lot of teams got better. I think the Mets got better. I think the Orioles got better. The Yankees got better. I think the Braves got better. But I definitely think that a lot took place today, more than we can really go through tonight just for time purposes alone. But as we look forward, we have to look around. And other teams got a lot better, and there's no denying that. But at the same time, I think Alex Anthopoulos, if there's anybody I trust, frankly, it's Alex Anthopoulos when it comes to not making deals, because not every deal is the right move, right? We spoke about the idea of, going after, folks from the White Sox, Garrett Crochet, Luis Robert. We spoke about Tommy Pham at one point, Eric Fetty. Most of those guys were gone yesterday. Crochet and Robert, the White Sox are hanging on to. That's probably the right choice for them. We were just hoping that maybe the White Sox, would sell big and go all out, and they decided not to move some of those guys. So when you look at where we're at right now, it's a point where you can't necessarily argue with the White Sox not trading them. You can't necessarily argue with the Braves not going all out. And really, when you look at what the Braves have versus what they don't right now, the prospect capital is limited, no doubt about that. I will not argue with that at all. But I also think that there were ways to make moves happen. I mean, when you look at this Soler deal and what we gave up and versus what we got a good bat, a good outfield bat, whether or not he's played outfield this year or not. He's capable of playing outfield. We got a solid bat, and we gave up an infield prospect that probably wouldn't have seen the light of day in the majors anyway, at least with the Braves. And we gave up Tyler Matzik, who is hurt. So all in all, I don't know that we necessarily gave up that much. Obviously, you wanted more. There's, no reason not to want more. I don't deny that. Don't even try to, argue with that. But at the same time, you got to look at where we are and look at what we could have done, sure, but really what we did. And Alex Anthopoulos was able to, frankly turn, chicken crap into chicken salad, with the lack of a better word, right? So for me and my money, I think that what we did so far, I'm perfectly fine with. Of course, I think anybody would have liked to have seen more. Of course, I would have definitely liked to have seen more, just for pure ratings sakes, if nothing else. But no, anytime you can make the team better, you should do it. I think we did that. I think Alex Anthopoulos did that with the addition of Jorge Soler, possibly even the addition of Luke Jackson. Luke Jackson's kind of more of a wild card to some degree. He hasn't had the best year, but overall, I think that we know who he is. We know what he can do. He can give you long relief. He can give you short relief. The vibe I got, because of course when you look at Luke Jackson's stats, naturally anybody that looks at his ERA even his fielding independent percentage are going to go, why are we doing that? He's got an ERA north of 5, a FIP that's not much better. And when you look at it, you are going to ask yourself, why would they add him in that trade and maybe not somebody else, other than pure nostalgia? And we know who he is, and he's a good clubhouse guy. The vibe I got is they really appreciated what he did in the last month and what he was able to bring to the table, and that means something, So at the end of the day, he's going to get a chance, and a lot of folks may not like it. A lot of folks may think that, it maybe shouldn't be done, but all in all, I think what we did with Jorge Soler, with Luke Jackson, I like the move. Would I have wanted more? You bet I would have wanted more. I wanted Garrett Crochet as of yesterday. So, anybody can say that we wanted more. It's hard to expect something like 2021 where you get an Adam Duvall, Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, combination there all at the end, Richard Rodriguez, and, later they become the NLCS and World Series MVPs, Jock Peterson. Everybody was pointing, maybe the Braves could make something happen with Jock Peterson. I didn't think so. And then the Diamondbacks, of course, started buying today. So that wasn't going to be the case. But I think the question now, we've talked about where this is going to be for this year. We've talked about where Jorge fits in for this year. I want to talk about where he fits in going forward. Okay, because here's the deal. The Braves picked up Soler's contract, and this cannot go without saying. Soler's contract is backloaded. After this year, he will be owed $2,370,900, whatever that is, right? So he's going to be owed a little over $2 million. After that, in 2025 and 2026, forget the dates there, just 2025 and 2026, he's going to be owed $13 million apiece. So at the end of the day, the Braves are taking on extra cash, and we know that, they know that, and they're willing to risk it on Jorge Soler. I don't necessarily mind it. I don't love it, but I get what they're doing, because here's the other thing, right? When you look towards the future, this is the Braves outfield beyond 2024 as it stands today, not including Luke Williams, Ramon Laureano, Eddie Rosario, and lack of a better word, filler pieces. These are the guys who we've committed substantial time to and are fundamental parts of the outfield, including Marcell Ozuna for other reasons. Ronald Acuna Jr. is a free agent in 2027. Michael Harris, 2031. Jared Kelenic, 2029. So there's not really a spot there once Ronald Acuna comes back, and of course once Michael Harris comes back, where Soler is guaranteed to start every day. There's just not, especially when you're only paying you're paying all of these guys less than what Soler will be making. You could trade one of them, sure, but doesn't Kelenic give you more worth than $760,000? And he only hits arbitration next year. He's a solid player. He's a better defender, arguably, than Soler or Ozuna. And never mind. That's not arguable. That's a fact. And he's not a free agent for another 5 years. So at the end of the day, when you look at that, where does Soler fit in, right? Well, you have a DH spot, but Marcell Ozuna has been really good so far this year. There's no denying that. Ozuna, through 105 games played, he's got a 306 average. He's got over 30 homers, almost an 1,000 OPS. There has been no better player on the Braves this year as a hitter than Marcell Ozuna. Some people would argue, well, Tyler, that's all he does is hit. He's a DH. Sure, but why remove him when you have a club option for $16 million next year? Why remove him and put in Soler, who's not giving you those results? Yes, you'll pay slightly less, but again, you won't have the results necessarily that Ozuna has given you. So why do it? And that's the interesting piece here, right? If this was a few years ago, I put out a video talking about how the Braves could somehow trade Marcell Ozuna and bring back Jorge Soler because of the performance Marcell was doing, obviously the off-the-field issues and that kind of thing. But we were talking about this. This was a legit topic back after 2021, right? Ozuna got hurt that year. He got in trouble that year. And we were sitting here talking about the possibility of bringing back Soler. Now it's a reality. And the Braves are going to have to decide what they do at the end of the year. Now, I'm going to tell you what Alex Anthopoulos said. Alex Anthopoulos got on the call today and basically said, look, we see Soler as an outfielder. We think he can find time in the outfield next year. And really, following next year, Ronald Acuna, I don't know if he's going to play the field or not. And I don't want to suggest that and it not be true. But there is a large contingency of Braves media, large contingency of Braves fans, and you have to speculate. I mean, the guy's busted his knees twice now, so you don't know if he's going to play the field. You don't know what kind of condition he's going to be in at the beginning of the year, but I would like to propose the idea that, yeah, Braves could walk away from Ozuna and keep Soler. The only reason they didn't re-sign Soler after 2021 was because of the money they had tied up in Ozuna that has obviously paid off in the latter years of the contract. But there early on, the Braves probably would have liked to have said, I wish we didn't make that original deal and we could sign Soler right now. That was kind of alluded to today in the press conference. Not said, I mean, they'll never say that, but you got to think that was running through their minds because we have one guy who didn't play the second half of the season in 2021, and we have another guy who just won the World Series MVP. I wonder who we'd rather have back. And you could probably pay him less or a shorter deal. But with Ozuna's 2024 campaign, which we mentioned earlier, great year so far. He's extremely hard to just walk away from because without a doubt, if the Braves decide not to pick up his option, he goes to free agency and he can name his price. Now, the other component, the personal component of this, is the Braves have kind of nurtured Ozuna back to where he is. Ozuna has spoken pretty candidly in the clubhouse to media throughout the year that, and it's been on camera. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but he spoke pretty candidly about, look, I'd like a deal right now. I want to be here. I want them to go ahead and tell me I'm going to be here. I don't want to wait for the club option. I want to know that I'm going to be here because he has found a home here. And look, I'm never one to judge anyone at their worst moments, but the fact that he has turned around like this, not only on the field, but also off the field, no one complains about what kind of teammate he is. There's something to be said for that. And I don't know that I would really want to see him go at this point. And that's not necessarily the conversation that's being had, is we got to pick between Soler and Ozuna, but the possibility is there. So if you don't walk away from Ozuna and keep Soler, what's the other option? Well, the obvious choice would be to keep Soler and, move on from Ozuna, or keep Ozuna and move on from Soler. So how do you move on from Soler? Well, what if, and I'm just putting this out there, what if the Braves sign Jorge Soler, they pay him the $2 million for the remainder of this season, and after this season, they trade him? I just want you to think about it. Just think about it. At the end of the year, we're likely going to be down at least one starting pitcher with what's going on with Max Fried and Charlie Morton. There is that possibility that, it could very well be that the Braves trade Jorge Soler because they will owe him $26 million. Now, I believe that the Braves are open to paying that. I don't think they're running away from the salary. But if you can trade Jorge Soler and land a starting pitcher, wouldn't you do it? Especially if you can get Ozuna back and you're getting Harris back, obviously, and you're getting Acuna back. Wouldn't you do that? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying it's going to happen. This is just something that ran through my mind when I was looking at the chart, the timeline of how everything shakes out. But look, you have Ronald Acuna coming back, and depending on his health for 2025, you'll have Michael Harris, you'll have Kelenic. They're all solid outfielders. Kelenick's had a good enough year to justify giving him another. He's been one of the bright spots, I think, in the lineup. To be honest, I personally, when I wrote this script before the press conference, I wrote down literally, I cannot see Ozuna or Soler playing the outfield beyond this season. Alex Anthopoulos completely turned it on its head when he said in the press conference that they view him as an outfielder for next year and the year following for his contract, the length of his contract. Look, I think a decision is going to have to be made. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm throwing it out here. The price tag for 2024 for Soler is $2 million and change. The price tag next year is $13 million. The price tag after that is another $13 million. When you look at the stats, it's clear who's a better DH. Marcell Ozuna has been far better in the past year, and the past 2 years probably. That said, we all love Jorge Soler. We all love what he has done for the Braves in the past, and hopefully what he'll do in the future. But it's just something that's been running through my mind. Could this be a possibility? Now, I mentioned earlier what the Braves lost in this trade. Of course, Tyler Matzik. Tyler Matzik probably wasn't going to pitch for the rest of the year. May not ever, take the mound for the Braves ever again. So I don't necessarily mind losing that. And then the minor leaguer, again, I can afford to lose that in my head anyway. We'll have to see how it all plays out. The point I want to make here, either way, for those of you that don't like this trade, who don't like Jorge Soler coming back, because I know there's a contingency of you folks out there. I just want you to hear me. Let's say that you're right. Let's say that he's not meant to be here for the next 3 years, and this is a waste of time, and whatever the case may be. Either way, the Braves, at minimum, added to the offseason trade capital. Because if we get to the offseason this year and we do lose Max Fried and Charlie Morton to retirement, who do we have to trade for a starting pitcher? I mean, sure, we can go after free agents. I don't deny that. But who do we have? Right now, we got 2 DHs. And, that just provides a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of versatility come the offseason and come the time where we're going to have to find something. And, it's interesting. Look, Atlanta's going to make a run, I think, in the postseason either way. Having a bat like Jorge Soler for this year is really good. Beyond that, I don't really know. The Braves claim that they want him for the next 3 years. They've wanted him for the past 3 years. So they saw a future with him, but obviously they couldn't really navigate getting around Ozuna's contract and really finding him playing time if Ozuna was here. But now we need an outfielder, and they're going to put him there. Look, we're going to have there may be some times where the defense looks a little shaky, but it already does anyway. Not calling anybody out, but I mean, we've had moments where the defenses look bad. I don't think Jorge Soler is really going to add anything to that, and I really don't think that, or I do think that his offense far outweighs any defensive liabilities that he may have. But that's just my take. I think this is a long-term strategy. You may not love it, but I think you see what's possible, and we'll see what happens. But all in all, I like the move. I like that Jorge Soler will be wearing the letter A on his cap for the rest of the year. I like that we got the World Series MVP back. I like that we didn't give up a lot, and frankly, I like that we didn't give up. I like that we did not turn into a seller. Alex Anthopoulos was asked in the press conference earlier, was there ever a time where you got a call about Max Fried, or you got a call about a certain player that, and of course he can't comment on anybody specifically, but he basically said, look, everybody knew that we were not a seller. Everybody knew. That was not our intention. We were very open about that in advance. And frankly, as a Braves podcaster, and I'm sure for you guys as Braves fans too, it's nice to know that the organization's not punting for the remainder of the year, because what investment could you really give to the team by watching if there's no chance at winning a World Series? And I know there's a lot of people out there that think there's no chance of winning the World Series. I'm sure the Phillies and the Diamondbacks fan bases thought that too, at least part of them over the past couple of years. But we've seen wild card teams make runs. I think this team will likely be a wild card team. I'd love it if they somehow won the division, but I mean, there's no doubt that, to me, that if this team is a wild card team, they're going to be scary. This offense is going to be scary. You get Ozzy Albies back, you get Michael Harris back, you add Jorge Soler, and you got Whit Merrifield coming off the bench. You got Eddie Rosario on the bench. You got Marcell Ozuna, who can, I mean, he hit one, 450 feet the other day. So, I mean, I'm just saying this offense is going to be scary. This pitching staff is going to be scary. And again, out of all of what we can take away from the trade deadline, I'm glad we did not give up. When we get back, we're going to go through all of your comments, so make sure to get them in. Remember, Super Chats get priority. And also, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Really helps us out. We love to grow this channel. We love for you to be a part of it. We got a great crowd tonight. We had a great crowd last night. We want a great crowd the next time we go live. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you know when we go live.
Are you ready to save big on a new Chevrolet?
Make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. The powerful Chevy Silverados are up to $13,750 off. And the big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Welcome back, everybody. Again, thank you for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. You guys have been killing it on the viewership over the past couple days. Cannot thank you enough for being here and being a part of the stream. This stream would really suck if we didn't have anybody watching, so we're thankful to have you. And again, thankful for all of your support. And again, the best way to support us, the quickest way and the easiest way to support us is to like the video and also get in your comments. You know, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think about this trade deadline. Were you disappointed? I'm sure many of you were. Were you excited about Soler? I mean, let us know what you thought about the trade deadline because, look, I mean, I'm open to all opinions. Joseph Alvarez says, sadly, the Braves did not do enough. Hopefully we can win the wild card. I think winning the wild card is the expectation. I think that's the minimum expectation for guys like Snit and AA who, you know, I mean, they obviously are disappointed with the way this year has gone, but they also know with all the injuries that have happened that it's also a testament to who this team is and what they've been able to do. The fact that we're even in the wild card, much less leading it in the National League. So all in all, you know, I know it sucks to see where the team is, but just remember, it sucked to see where the team was at the end of the first half in 21 too. You know, I mean, a lot of things can change. A lot can happen. Dustin Jones says they need to blow this team up because there is no leader out there. They're more worried about their swag than hitting the ball, get a cage, and learn to get a base hit, not a homer. So here's the thing, right? I get these comments here and there. I hear you, Dustin. I hear you. But I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not talking down to you. I just want you to listen to me. I've been in the clubhouse, right? I see how these guys interact together. And I don't think they don't act this way. They're not braggadocious. They're not in your face about anything. Most of them are very humble. And if you're looking for a leader, I think Marcell Ozuna has turned into that. And that might turn you off. I don't know. You know, a lot of people have their opinions made up about Marcell Ozuna. I will tell you that mine has changed over the years significantly. And whether that's fair or not in your opinion, it's how I feel. I've met the man. I've interviewed him for work. And look, I personally think that, the guy's turned his life around. He's become more of a leader. He's become a veteran player, and he takes younger guys under his wing. The relationship he and Ozzy Albies has is great. And look, I mean, that's all you can ask, really. I mean, that's all you can ask for. So that's just Marcell, though. In terms of Matt Olson and Austin Riley, they're having down years. We can all point and laugh at that. But look, Matt Olson hit 54 homers last year. It's hard to replicate that, and I'm sure he's just as frustrated as anybody. One thing that we do constantly hear from the upper echelon of Braves management, from Brian Snitker himself, is these players have great work ethic. They have a great dedication to their craft, and I don't see anything like, here's the thing, right? There's other teams where I would agree with you. I'm not going to say who they are, but there's other teams where I would agree with you. And they don't have results on the field. We talked about the White Sox recently. I think there's probably a clubhouse cancer in there. The Braves don't have that problem. So as much as we can talk about where the results aren't, what we can talk about is, look, they have put their head down. They have got to work. We have seen improvements. I mean, Jared Kelenick's a good example. Ramon Laureano, what he's done since he's been with the Braves. Forget the defensive plays, what he's done at the plate. He has a 143 average for the whole year. I think he's got a 240 average since he's been with Atlanta. So I'm just saying the culture of the team is not a problem. On the go with CeeLo. I am so sorry. I know I'm running late. I had a lot to talk about. I hope you're still watching. Check out his stream tonight during the game. I'm supposed to possibly get on. Well, I got like 30 minutes. I might make it. We'll see. I got to get through these comments, though. And again, thank you all for being here. Check me out. I'll more than likely be on the go with CeeLo's stream tonight, talking about this entire trade deadline and answering questions there, too. But we're going to answer as many here as we can. GMAT says it was a whole lot of nothing going on today. Yeah, look, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I was sitting here all day going, all right, come on, you ever seen that meme where the little animated character's like poking something with a stick saying do something? That was me today. I was sitting here watching Foul Territory, MLB Network, ESPN. I had it all on, waiting, and every other team was doing stuff, and here we were. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that was it then. But, it's what we can ask for. Lady Brave says, not too happy with this deadline. I'm sad we lost Matzik. I understand it. I get it. I mean, look, you saw in the intro video, I've met Tyler, no pun intended. I've met him. Super nice guy. I posted something on my Instagram yesterday, that my first time in a clubhouse, it's intimidating when you're first time walking in there. I work for a local station. I don't work for the Braves or anything. But the first time I went in to get interviews and to get stuff I needed for our broadcast, there were two players that talked to me. You don't have that long in there, but there were two players that said something to me prior to me asking for an interview or anything. One of them was Tyler Matzik. Came up to me, said hello, how are you doing? And the reason was I had interviewed him a couple months before, but he remembered my name. He remembered, just things we had talked about and asked how I was doing. I'll never forget that. That was cool to be recognized by a big league player the first time I'm in the clubhouse. That was cool. And I appreciated it. So in terms of the person, I hate we're losing him. In terms of what he did for us in the postseason in 21, I hate we're losing him. I hope we give him every opportunity we can to get him back in a Braves uniform in some capacity. But at the same time, he likely wasn't going to pitch this year. If his absence gets us something, I'm okay with it. Very similar to what we did with Kyle Wright before this season, right? Kyle Wright out for the year. He's only got 1 year left on his deal. We traded him. We got a couple things back. Nothing huge, but I mean, we're trading somebody who's not going to take the mound at all this year to get something back. In this case, we're getting the former World Series MVP. I think we'll take that, right? So as much as I'm as upset about it or, I hate to see that, I'm all right with the current situation and the reason they did it. We got a lot to answer tonight. Remember, Super Chats do get priority. They get you put front in the line. So just remember, if you got something you want me to answer quickly, that's the best way to do it. Let's see. GMAT says, Olsen, Riley, and Murphy need to lock it in and make up for these gaps. Make too much money to be performing like this. I could argue in the grand scheme of things in all of Major League Baseball, they really don't make all that much, but I won't do that because they make millions. I'm not going to do that. I understand what you're saying. But what I will say is I think they know that. They feel the pressure. There's no way they don't. But I think the whole team feels that. I think Kelenic, even with all of what he's done this year, feels that. I think Arcia feels that. Olsen, Riley, and Murphy, I think, really feel that. From Murphy's point of view, I think he's actually been fairly decent. But he was hurt for 50 games early in the year, right? So it's tough for me to really throw stones at him. Olsen's been the only one that has been healthy all year long. Riley had that one oblique thing. And that's not really an excuse either. But it's a tough game. Anybody that likes to pick on Major League Baseball players that are struggling, I always like to tell them, look, go play MLB The Show on Expert or whatever, and let me know how well you do. And then magnify that times about 20, right? Because it's real life, and you got to have bat speed. You got to figure out the adjustments in your swing. You got to figure out the pitches they're throwing to get in your head. It's a dance. It's a game. It's a tough game, and it doesn't always go everybody's way. Year to year, and I think at this point, I'm just hoping that Olsen and Riley break out in the postseason and prove everybody wrong, right? Jonathan Yang says we needed more trades besides Soler and Jackson at the deadline. We'll just wait and see what Double-A does after the deadline. We needed a fifth starting pitcher besides going with Elder most of the time. I don't even necessarily disagree with you, right? You guys know I had circled Eric Fetty a million times and said, man, this is the guy I want. This is going to be the guy. He's been really good for the White Sox, and if you can be good for the White Sox, you can be good for anybody. And I really wanted him, and it didn't end up happening. I think the Cardinals snagged him. But there was a few guys I was willing to look at. Yusei Kikuchi, I think, got moved to the Astros from the Blue Jays. So there was a bunch of guys that I had circled and looked at and really deep dove into what, the possibilities were. Of course, everybody was wondering about Garrett Crochet, and I get it. I never thought that was at play, but I would have definitely listened if I knew. But it just wasn't in play. Let's see. A lot of folks sad to see Tyler Matzik gone. His wife made a post on Twitter yesterday that was really nice. If you haven't seen it, you ought to go pull that up. Let me see. On the go with CeeLo. Freed's coming back. AJ Smith-Shawver's coming back. Yeah, I forget about AJ. Goldilocks Holmes and Schwelly as the fifth. Holmes, I talked about it a little bit last night. He looked great. I don't know if that's a common thing for him, but he looked really good in that first start. I wouldn't mind seeing it a second time. He also asked, what did you expect Double-A to do or to get rid of? That's a good question, right? Because that's what I kept saying to folks prior to this, because it's like, look, my expectations are high because of history. I've seen Double-A turn, nothing into something before, and I'm not necessarily going to say that he can't do that again. I got to fix my camera here. It's a little too bright. But anyway, I just wasn't willing to say that it couldn't happen, right? But that said, in terms of what I wanted him to get rid of, there wasn't anything that I wanted him to get rid of. It was more along the lines of, what did I think he could land something? Because I did. I thought, we had prospect capital. You have Hurston Waldrop. You had Schwellenbach. You had AJ Smith-Shawver. I thought we definitely could have landed something. Even the Dylan Dodds, the Bryce Elders, you had guys that could land something. But is the cost worth, what you're getting? That's the question that's got to be asked, right? And I think the Braves value. I'm sure that they heard, calls for, hey, you opened a deal in Schwellenbach. I'm sure they heard calls about that. And they probably just weren't willing to. So I'm sure they had a lot of different, trade proposals come their way that they turned down, and, they're probably better for it, because, look, I mean, we can all be armchair GMs. Lord knows I am. But at the same time, like, as much as I think I know the answers, there's nobody that knows it better than Double-A. I mean, there's just not. I really thought they needed a starting pitcher. I thought they, I'm sure Double-A probably thought, we could use a starting pitcher. He won't say that now, but I'm sure he thought that. And it is what it is, right? Like, if it's not there, you can't blame him for, I'm not going to give you Hurston Waldrop, AJ Smith-Shawver, and, somebody else for Eric Fetty just because you think I'm desperate. I'm not going to do it because we have a bright future ahead. Because in deals like that, as much as you're thinking about this year, you also have to be real with yourself and go, okay, well, as much as I do want to win this year, we do have 2025, 2026 to worry about. Guys, just a reminder, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Remember, Super Chats do get priority. They get you moved to the front of the line. So if you got something you want to talk about that I haven't talked about, put it in a Super Chat and we'll read it right now. Chris Kaysen says, Double-A seems to have good knowledge and faith in Fried and Lopez returning quickly and strong back into the starting rotation. Great news for the Braves aside from the deadline. Yeah, I mean that's honestly the best thing for them is that they weren't desperate going into the deadline, because if you're down Ronaldo, you get desperate, right? That a lot of people were wondering, well, why haven't we got an update yet on Ronaldo? Because it went later and later and later in the day. I thought it was just because of a late start. Maybe media is getting there later. Maybe they're just announcing it later. Maybe the MRI hasn't come back yet. A lot of reasons it can be late, but a lot of folks are saying, well, it ain't going to be good news if it's this late, and I can see that too. But obviously it was good news, and that makes us far less desperate at the deadline, because it could have went the other way, and good for us it didn't. Chris Kaysen says, I don't understand why everyone is freaking out about not getting a starting pitcher in the trade deadline. So here's the reason I thought we needed a starting pitcher, just to give you the basic background of it. Back when Strider went down, I was already on the starter. We need a starter at the deadline. Circle the deadline. We need a starter. We need a starter right now because we're down Strider. How could you not react that way, right? I mean, that's just kind of natural. You lose a Cy Young candidate in the first 3 weeks of the season, and you're starting to get worried. As time went on, it's like, well, Ronaldo Lopez is kind of doing better than I assumed he would. Schwellenbach's doing a lot better lately. But I was concerned, and I think rightfully so still, that the depth wasn't there, right? Because Bryce Elder, for all of what he has, ability to win games has not been that. It's not been there. And in terms of the postseason, I don't know that I want Bryce Elder pitching a deciding game, at least not right now. Plus, Reynaldo Lopez getting hurt kind of told me, like, oh, yeah, I don't like what we got left, So there's just a big question mark once you get past the guys that we do have in the rotation. Even Schwellenbach is a wild card, a little bit, because yes, he's been good, but I mean the lack of MLB experience is tough, and he's got to get it somewhere, but it's still tough, and you don't necessarily want to give it to him in the postseason. So it's just that's why I thought we needed a starter. Listening to Double A today, listening to frankly the confidence that they have in what the Braves do have. I'm good with it. Sound FX, I see you say B+ for the trade deadline. I agree. It's not, I would have, of course, loved to have seen a big move like a Garrett Crochet or, Carlos Estevez even from the Angels, or Taylor Ward, just something like that we all kind of saw coming. But look, I said last week that I wanted Alex Anthopoulos to surprise me. I wanted him to do something that I didn't see coming, because that's the excitement of the trade deadline. And I wanted him to outsmart me. And frankly, he outsmarted me. So, I got what I wanted. Sound FX, you say Soler Power and Skywalker Jackson were solid additions, and I understand why AA could not make moves for the pitching rotation. The prices were way too high. And that's really the thing, right? I said we need a starter back in, I guess, April. April, I said we need a starter. But that was before the market got to be where it is. The market was a seller's market. The fact that we got Soler for Tyler Matzik and an infielder, we're taking the cash off of it, but the fact that we got him was great, because when you look at what everybody else gave up, the Astros, poor Dana Brown, former head of scouting for the Braves, getting absolutely shellacked by Astros fans. They don't love the deals he's making because it's a seller's market. And it is what it is, and we got what we got, and I think we held off where we probably should have. And there was a lot of deals back when we had a lot of prospects that, we probably could have got a star for Ronald Acuna back in the day, and we would have regretted that forever. Or we could have got somebody for, Max Fried, or, there was probably a lot of different trade proposals that came through. Michael Harris. And patience is a virtue. That's all I'm going to say. Sometimes it's better to trust what you have and not what you don't. So all in all, I think Alex Anthopoulos more than likely handled himself as I would expect. And here we are. Scroll down a little bit. Little E. Other teams got great players for almost nobodies. Don't understand why we couldn't get any of those players. Any, but not even one. Flaherty went to the Dodgers for low-level prospects. Why was AA not going for that? Okay, so I hear you, because I was sitting there thinking the same thing. But I would also say that a lot of teams are probably charging the Braves more for starting pitching, especially after Reynaldo went down. So, well, why would I think about this? So Jack Flaherty went what, to the Dodgers? The Dodgers don't really have any weaknesses when it comes to the starting rotation. Not really. So they're not desperate for it. But the Braves kind of are, or at least kind of were last week. And that doesn't really help your negotiating, your poker face when you go to the negotiating table. So I'm not saying that it's a perfect situation. Double A didn't really get into, the component of it, but I'm sure the asking price for the Braves was probably a little bit different than what it would be for the Dodgers. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's just that who they asked for, Double A wasn't really willing to do. There's certain guys that I wouldn't be willing to give up, right? I really like what I've seen in A.J. Smith-Shawver. I don't know that I'd feel comfortable getting him in a trade for something that's going to be good for the remainder of this year. And that's just kind of what you get when this kind of stuff happens. But would I have liked to see a starting pitcher of some sort? Yes. But I'm not overly disappointed. There's definitely a hint of disappointment in me for sure. But I like the Soler move. The longer time goes on from the Soler move, the more I think it makes sense. I think that'll continue. I think, when the Braves are playing in the World Series this year and he wins another MVP, it'll really make sense. Guys, just a reminder, please do like the video. It helps us out a ton. And it of course helps us get this out to a larger crowd, larger audience. The more you like the video, it really helps us grow. Sports Daily says Braves have so many needs and Double A did nothing. Worst possible scenario. Have you seen the White Sox lately? I'm just saying. Perspective is everything. Should have traded Ozuna and Fried if you were just going to pack it in. Oh, Lord. Okay. Look, I get it. I get it. But you have to understand that the negotiating factor is... You have to understand the negotiating factor. Because the Braves, for all of what they do have, they don't have a ton of prospect capital. And the prospects capital that they do have that's worth anything, they want to keep because most of them are starting pitchers. And Fried's going to be off the books next year. Morton could be off the books next year. You got to have something, and I don't necessarily mind it. Let's see. A lot of comments. Really appreciate you guys being here. Chris Messenger. Very disappointing that they didn't get a starter. I agree. It's like he made a move to make a move while knowing they're not going to do anything this season. I think we're forgetting, I get what you guys are saying, but I think we're forgetting the fact that at some point we are getting Ozzy back. We are getting Harris back. The only ones that we're not getting back are Strider and Acuna. They were never going to be sellers. I told you that a week ago. They're not going to sell. They may not go all out, but they're not going to sell. I couldn't see that happening. But you can't blame them if, you can't blame them if the deal wasn't there, if there wasn't a deal. Let's see. A lot of folks in here. Corey Carter says, this is a seller's market. The guy I wanted was Tanner Scott. The Padres gave up the number 2, 4, 5, and 24 prospects. The Braves equivalent would be, thank you, Hurston Waldrop, Owen Murphy, Nacho, and Jesse Franklin. No way. And I agree with that. And forget, let's say none of these guys ever make it to the big leagues and have long careers in a Braves uniform. What it is, beyond that, beyond what it could be for your team, is it's trade pieces elsewhere. And it may be that, I don't want to pay 5 prospects for this guy when I need 2 prospects for a starting pitcher next year. Or when I need a reliever at the trade deadline next year. Or when I need whatever next year. So a lot of it's trade pieces too. It's not, it's not a buyer's market. I wish it was, but it wasn't. And, I think we all knew that going in. Tanner Scott's a reliever who has had a great year, no doubt about that. But the Padres are always overspenders in cash and prospects, no matter what they do, whether it be a trade or whether it be, whether it be a trade or whether it be just free agency. They always overspend. Tanner Scott, free agent at the end of the year, all right? He's making $5 million, so the Padres are probably going to pay half that. But all in all, you're paying him $5 million, and the Padres have him for the remainder of the year, losing 4 prospects. Now ask yourself, I know the Padres are a good team. I get it. But ask yourself, would you really want to give up that much of your future? And I don't know where their farm system is. It may be at a point where they can afford to do that. They certainly think so. But I don't believe in building a team that way. I never have. The Padres currently are below us in the standings, and they just gave up 4 prospects for 1 reliever. And I know they had other moves. I get all that. But I can't buy into the idea that it's worth losing Waldrop, Owen Murphy, Nacho, and Jesse Franklin. I just can't justify that. I think you have to kind of stand pat. You have to wait for Whit Merrifield to come back to send Nacho down, and from there you go and you try to get healthy at some point, and you try to compete and make sure you're in a wild card spot. But it's not like they were going to put all their chips in the pile either, So I hear what you're saying. I get all of it, but to sit here and criticize Alex Anthopoulos for what he didn't do here, I think you're forgetting the fact that he had self-control and not giving up our future. But that's just my opinion. A lot of folks upset. I knew there would be. I knew there'd be a large contingency of folks that just did not love the fact that we didn't make any more moves. I don't love that we didn't make any more moves, but I don't think Alex Anthopoulos loves that we didn't make any more moves. But at the end of the day, you can't fault him for deciding not to move on something that doesn't benefit the team long term. Because here's the thing, right? Alex Anthopoulos has a window to work with, and that window is possibly growing shorter. Ronald Acuna is a free agent in a couple of years. Ozzy's a free agent, I think, at the end of next year. That window could be coming to a close. He's got to make sure that he gives us a chance this year to win a championship or to at least make a run in the postseason. But he's also got to make sure that next year we can do the same, right? So you can't just throw away the future when all of these guys' contracts are coming up and injuries happen and all this. It's tough. We're coming off a year where the Braves set all these records offensively, and it was exciting. And what did that get us? What did it get us? It got us eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, right? So this year, you give yourself the same opportunity. I said this at the end of last year, to a lot of criticism, but I'll say it again. I don't care. I said this last year that I thought that I would rather have the team in the wild card series. Now, I'm being punished for that this year, obviously. But if we're in the wild card series and we're playing our best baseball, I'd put this team up against anybody. The problem is we haven't played our best baseball all year, with the exception of Chris Sale, Reynaldo Lopez, Max Fried maybe here and there, and Marcell Ozuna. I mean, the lineup has been dead, no doubt about that. But they just did something to boost it, and hopefully the guys that we have that we know can perform start performing. And they're on a down year, and you hate to see it, but it's not like they're not working to do something. Mark Narmore says, pay players like they're salesmen. Pay them like they're on commission. They gotta perform to get paid. I don't know about that. It is what it is. Guys, we've been on for a little over an hour. I think we're going to wrap it up. I got to get on the go with CeeLo. I got to be on his show here in a few minutes. I don't want to miss that. I don't want to do him that way. So I'm going to wrap it up here. But one last reminder, please do like the video. I hope you enjoyed the content. Thank you for being here. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being here last night. You guys absolutely killed it in viewership, and I can't thank you enough. If you enjoy the show, even if you disagree with me, if you enjoy the show, if you just like baseball, we do a lot of different varieties of content on this channel. We do streams, we do videos, we do shorts, we do interviews with former players, we do interviews with current players sometimes. I would love for you to subscribe and be a part of it. Check out all the stuff on the homepage. You wouldn't regret it. Also, check out the On Deck shop. I believe I have it linked. If not, I'll get it on there soon. I believe I got it somewhere. But yeah, go check out the On Deck shop if you like merch, if you like to support YouTube channels. We would certainly appreciate it. They got some good stuff out there with the On Deck logo on it, which you can see right here. And while this is up, go ahead and follow me at Tyler Redmond TV on Twitter and Instagram. We would love to have you there. The On Deck merch is down below, and we'd love for you to check that out. So, with that said, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here once again. Also, thank you to our sponsor, Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC and Opelika. They are big supporters of us, and we are, of course, big supporters of them as well. They got great prices on great vehicles. Go check them out. Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC and Opelika. With that all out of the way, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.